Sometimes one of the hardest things to do is to trust what you're feeling when your mind keeps trying to explain it away. Hi, welcome to Real Life Reflections with Issue, where I share real experiences, real growth, and real faith. Today, we're talking about discernment, emotional awareness, and why your nervous system may be recognizing things that your heart is still struggling to admit. Many of us have inadvertently become accustomed to second guessing ourselves. So, when something feels off or uncomfortable, when it feels draining or even unsettling, we immediately start to rationalize it. We tell ourselves, maybe I'm overthinking, maybe I'm just too emotional, or maybe it's not that serious. Meanwhile, your body's exhausted, you're anxious, you're emotionally drained, you're hypervigilant, and just always on edge. And that tension is never random. Your nervous system is actually responding to what your spirit has already discerned. Not every environment is healthy, not every relationship is safe, and not everything that looks normal externally is peaceful internally. There are some situations that look completely fine on the outside, but internally they're producing confusion or emotional exhaustion, fear, instability, and leaving you in a constant state of unrest. And eventually, you have to stop dismissing what your spirit keeps trying to tell you. Scripture tells us in Colossians 3, verse 15, let the peace of God rule in your hearts. And that word rule is extremely important because peace is not just a feeling, peace is direction, it's discernment, peace is alignment. And the absence of peace, that is information. Now, let me be clear. This does not mean that we become fearful, paranoid, suspicious, or emotionally reactive to everything, because anxiety and discernment are two very different things. Fear or anxiety creates confusion. Discernment, on the other hand, creates clarity. But we have to stop constantly overriding the signs that our bodies, our minds, and our spirits keep responding to. There are times when we've become so used to dysfunction that peace starts to feel unfamiliar. We've become so accustomed to survival mode that calm starts to feel almost unsafe. And that can happen after a trauma, heartbreak, disappointment, or prolonged emotional distress, just to name a few. Your nervous system actually ends up adapting to whatever environment it spends most of its time in. So if you spend enough time around chaos, inconsistency, tension, around unpredictability, eventually your body starts to live in a constant state of hypervigilance. And the dangerous part about that is, after a while, many people start to normalize that. They normalize emotional exhaustion, constantly feeling drained. They normalize never feeling emotionally safe or constantly carrying stress internally. But because something has become familiar does not make it healthy. And oftentimes, the reason why you cannot fully rest is because something within you recognizes that what you are connected to is not producing peace. Scripture tells us in 2 Timothy 1 verse 7 that God did not give us a spirit of fear, but of power and love and of a sound mind. And that is because God does not desire for us to constantly live in mental torment. He doesn't want us to live in emotional instability. He doesn't want us to feel spiritually drained or even disconnected from the peace that He has given us. And again, this is where discernment becomes extremely important, because discernment isn't always loud. Sometimes it sounds like something about this doesn't feel right. I don't feel settled here. I feel emotionally exhausted every time I engage with this. Or I keep trying to convince myself that this is okay, but deep down, I feel that something is off. And Many of us delay healing because we spend too much time trying to intellectually justify what our nervous system and our spirit have already recognized. We stay in unhealthy environments for too long. We ignore red flags for far too long. We silence ourselves and tolerate emotional unrest for far too long. And that is why paying attention to your emotional unrest matters. Now, the truth is, not every uncomfortable feeling means you should run. I want to be very clear about that. And not every challenge means that something is wrong. But persistent confusion, constant turmoil, chronic emotional exhaustion, and an ongoing loss of peace, those things should never be ignored either. God often gives us discernment before he gives us explanation. And obedience starts when we acknowledge what we already know internally. So if you've been constantly feeling disturbed or emotionally unsafe, if you've been feeling spiritually drained or internally conflicted, stop and ask yourself honestly, what is my nervous system trying to tell me that my mind keeps trying to excuse? Your nervous system isn't lying. It's revealing what your heart has not fully admitted yet. And a huge part of healing is finally being honest about what no longer brings peace into your life. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that this blesses you as much as it has blessed me. And if this spoke to you, share it with someone you love. I'll see you in the next reflection.